I thought I was doing the right thing. For 4 years, I had been sending $1,200 every month to my parents in Dallas. As a 28-year-old marketing coordinator at a small firm in Austin, it was not an easy sacrifice, but I felt proud knowing I could take care of them. Dad Harold was 62, a former mechanic with back problems, and Mom Patricia was 59, a retired nurse. They had given me everything they could growing up, so supporting them felt like the natural thing to do. That Christmas Eve, I was driving to their house for our annual family gathering, excited to see how they were doing. I had no idea that this holiday would shatter everything I believed about love, family, and my own worth. Before I share what happened that Christmas Eve, I would love to know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever felt proud of taking care of your family, and do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, you will want to hear how this unfolds. Growing up in a working-class family in Dallas, I learned the value of hard work early. Dad spent 30 years fixing engines at a local garage, coming home every night with grease under his fingernails and stories about the cars he had brought back to life. Mom worked double shifts at the community hospital, always tired but never too exhausted to help me with homework or pack my lunch with little notes that said things like, "Have a great day, sweetheart," or, "Remember you are capable of anything." College was never really an option for me. When I graduated high school, my parents sat me down at our kitchen table with its chipped formica surface and explained that they simply could not afford tuition. Dad had been having back problems that required expensive physical therapy, and Mom's hours at the hospital had been cut due to budget constraints. I understood completely and told them I would figure out my own path. That path led me to online marketing courses that I paid for with money earned from my job at a local coffee shop. I studied every night after work, learning about social media strategy, content creation, and digital advertising. It took me 3 years to build enough skills to land my first real marketing job at a small agency in Austin. The pay was not great, but it was steady, and I felt incredibly proud of what I had accomplished on my own. When I moved to Austin at 24, I started sending money home almost immediately. Dad had retired early because his back issues had worsened, and Mom had also stopped working to take care of him. They mentioned struggling to pay bills, and I could hear the stress in their voices during our weekly phone calls. Without hesitation, I started transferring $1,200 every month from my checking account to theirs. My life in Austin was modest but comfortable. I rented a one-bedroom apartment in an older complex on the east side of town. The walls were thin and the air conditioning was temperamental, but it was mine. I decorated it with secondhand furniture from thrift stores and plants that I bought from the farmer's market. I learned to cook simple meals to save money, meal prepping every Sunday with rice beans and whatever vegetables were on sale that week. I turned down invitations to go out with coworkers because drinks at trendy bars cost $20 that I could send home instead. I bought my clothes from discount retailers and wore shoes until they had holes in them. None of this felt like a sacrifice because every time I talked to my parents, they sounded so grateful and proud of me for being able to help them. "Celia, you are such a good daughter," Mom would say during our Sunday phone calls. "I do not know what we would do without you." Dad would get on the phone and tell me how much my support meant to them. "You are our little success story," he would say. "We always knew you would make something of yourself." Those words filled me with warmth and purpose. I felt like I was finally able to give back to the people who had raised me, even if I had not followed the traditional path of college and a high-paying career. But over the past few months, I had started noticing some things that puzzled me. During our video calls, I spotted a large flat-screen television mounted on their living room wall. When I asked about it, Dad mentioned that it was a great deal they had found. Mom had started carrying what looked like an expensive leather handbag during our calls, and when I complimented it, she laughed and said it was just something I picked up. Then there was the Las Vegas trip Dad mentioned in passing. When I asked how they could afford a vacation, he quickly explained that an old friend had paid for everything. I wanted to ask more questions, but something in his tone suggested the conversation was closed. I convinced myself that they had probably been more frugal than I realized, and had saved up for these small luxuries. Maybe they had found ways to supplement their income that they had not told me about. After all, they were smart people who had managed a household for decades before I started helping them. As Christmas approached, I was excited to visit them in Dallas for the first time in 6 months. I had been too busy with work to make the 3-hour drive, so we had only communicated through phone calls and video chats. I bought modest gifts with the little extra money I had managed to save, a nice scarf for Mom and a book about classic cars for Dad. I was looking forward to spending time with family and maybe meeting some of their friends and neighbors. When I pulled into their driveway that Friday afternoon, I immediately noticed changes to the house. The exterior had been repainted a warm beige color, and new shutters framed the windows. The front yard had been professionally landscaped with colorful winter plants and decorative stones. I felt a flutter of confusion as I parked my older Honda Civic next to what appeared to be a much newer car in the driveway. Mom greeted me at the front door with a huge hug, and I was struck by how relaxed and happy she looked. Her hair had been professionally styled, and she was wearing a sweater that looked expensive. "Celia, we are so excited you are here," she said, pulling me inside. The interior of the house had been completely transformed. The living room now featured a plush leather sectional sofa, a glass coffee table, and the large television I had glimpsed during video calls. The dining room table was set with dishes I had never seen before, and the whole house smelled like expensive candles. "Wow, the place looks amazing," I said, trying to keep the surprise out of my voice. Dad appeared from the kitchen looking healthier and more energetic than I had seen him in years. "Thanks, sweetheart. We decided to do some updating. You know how it is, we had some luck with some investments and thought we would treat ourselves." I followed them to the kitchen, which had been completely renovated with granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and custom cabinets. The refrigerator was enormous and completely stocked with name-brand foods, imported cheeses, and expensive cuts of meat. "Investments?" I asked, setting down my small bag of gifts on the counter. "Oh, just some stock picks that worked out well," Mom said vaguely, waving her hand as if it were not important. "Your father has always been good with numbers." I wanted to ask more questions, but before I could, the doorbell rang. "That must be Robert and Sandra," Mom said, hurrying to answer it. Uncle Robert was Dad's younger brother, and Aunt Sandra was his wife of 20 years. They lived in an upscale suburb of Dallas, and had always been the successful ones in the family. Robert owned a small chain of tire shops, and Sandra worked as a real estate agent. When they walked in carrying expensive wine and elaborate flower arrangements, I felt a familiar pang of inadequacy. "Celia, look at you," Sandra said, giving me a hug that felt performative rather than warm. "Still in Austin? Still doing the marketing thing?" "Yes, I love my job," I replied, though I could hear how defensive I sounded. "That is wonderful, dear. Not everyone needs a college degree to be successful," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. More guests arrived throughout the afternoon. Dr. Williams, the family physician, came with his wife, Margaret. Mrs. Henderson from next door stopped by with her adult son, Kevin. Everyone seemed to know about my parents' apparent good fortune, and they all complimented the house renovations and asked about upcoming travel plans. I found myself feeling increasingly uncomfortable as the afternoon progressed. The conversation revolved around expensive restaurants, vacation destinations, and luxury purchases. When people asked about my life in Austin, I felt embarrassed talking about my modest apartment and careful budgeting. I began to wonder if my monthly contributions were as meaningful as I had thought they were. "Harold was telling me about your cruise plans," Dr. Williams said to my parents as we gathered in the living room. "The Caribbean sounds wonderful this time of year." "We are so excited," Mom replied. "We have never taken a real vacation like this before." A cruise. This was the first I was hearing about any cruise. I looked at my parents with confusion, but they seemed to be avoiding eye contact with me. The conversation moved on to other topics before I could ask any questions. As evening approached and it was time to prepare dinner, I volunteered to help Mom in the kitchen. I noticed that even the cookware had been upgraded to expensive brands, and the pantry was stocked with gourmet ingredients. "Mom, can I ask you something?" I said as I chopped vegetables for the salad. "Of course, honey." "I am just curious about these investments Dad mentioned. I mean, it is wonderful that you both are doing so well financially, but I want to make sure you still want me to keep sending the monthly money. If you do not need it anymore." Mom's expression changed slightly, and she quickly turned back to the stove. "Oh, Celia, of course we still appreciate your help. Every little bit counts, you know. And we are so proud that you want to take care of us." Something in her tone felt off, but before I could pursue the conversation further, Dad called us to come help set the table for dinner. I decided I would bring up the topic again later when we had more privacy. The Christmas Eve dinner was elaborate with multiple courses and wine pairings that Dad seemed to know a lot about. The conversation flowed easily around the table with everyone sharing stories and laughing together. I started to relax and enjoy myself, feeling grateful to be surrounded by family and friends. After dinner, as people moved between the living room and kitchen, I stepped outside onto the back patio to get some fresh air. The December evening was crisp, but not too cold, and I could see Christmas lights twinkling in the neighbors' yards. I was feeling content and happy, thinking about how wonderful it was that my parents seemed to be thriving. That feeling lasted about 30 seconds. Through the kitchen window, which was open a crack to let out cooking odors, I could hear voices clearly. My parents were inside with Uncle Robert, Aunt Sandra, and Dr. Williams cleaning up and having what they obviously thought was a private conversation. "You know what is funny?" I heard Dad's voice say clearly. "Celia thinks she is supporting us with that little money she sends." I froze my hand halfway to the patio door handle. "Poor girl." Mom's voice continued, and I could hear the amusement in her tone. "She dropped out of college and thinks her marketing job makes her successful. She has no idea we have been living off our real investments for years." Uncle Robert's laugh was unmistakable. A low-educated freeloader who thinks she is the family hero. Classic. The sound of their laughter felt like a physical blow to my chest. I stood there in the cold, unable to move, unable to breathe as their conversation continued. "We never needed her money." Mom said, her voice clearer now as she must have moved closer to the window. "I just felt sorry for her, so we accepted it. Made her feel useful, you know. She sends $1,200 a month like it is some grand gesture," Dad added. "We spend more than that on wine these days." Sandra's voice joined in. "Why do not you just tell her the truth?" "And hurt her little feelings," Mom replied. "Let her live in her fantasy. Besides, free money is free money. Why would we turn that down?" More laughter. Dr. Williams said something I could not quite catch, but it was followed by another round of chuckling from the group. I felt like the world was tilting beneath my feet. 4 years. 4 years of sending them money that I could barely afford, 4 years of living like a student while they renovated their house and planned luxury vacations. 4 years of feeling proud that I could take care of my parents while they were laughing at me behind my back and calling me a freeloader. The worst part was not even the money. It was the realization that every phone call, every expression of gratitude, every "we are so proud of you" had been a performance. They had been pitying me while taking my money, viewing my sacrifice as some pathetic attempt to buy their love and approval. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes listening to them continue their conversation about their actual financial situation. Apparently, Dad had been investing successfully in the stock market for years, and they owned rental properties that I had never heard about. Mom had received an inheritance from a great aunt that had been invested wisely. They were not just comfortable. They were actually quite wealthy. And they had let me struggle to send them money that they did not need while mocking me for not having a college education. I took a deep breath and walked back into the house, forcing a smile onto my face. I was not going to confront them in front of their guests. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I was going to play their game better than they did. For the rest of the evening, I was the perfect daughter. I helped with dishes, made small talk with the guests, and hugged everyone goodbye when they left. I told my parents I was tired from the drive and would be heading back to Austin early the next morning. "Oh, do you have to leave so soon?" Mom asked, but I could hear the relief in her voice that she would not have to keep up the charade much longer. "Yes, I have some work to catch up on before the new year," I said calmly. As I drove back to Austin that night, I was not crying. I was not angry. I was focused. I had a plan, and for the first time in months, I felt completely clear about what I needed to do. On January 2nd, when my parents would normally receive their monthly transfer, they got something different instead. They got nothing. No money, no explanation, just silence. I had spent the week between Christmas and New Year thinking carefully about my next steps. I could have sent them an angry message or called to confront them about what I had heard, but I realized that would just give them another opportunity to manipulate me or make excuses. Instead, I decided to let my actions speak for themselves. I also changed my phone number and blocked their old numbers from all my social media accounts. If they wanted to reach me, they would have to work for it. It took exactly 3 days for them to track down my new number. Dad called first, sounding confused and concerned. "Celia, honey, I think there might be a problem with the bank transfer. We did not receive anything this month." I let him talk for about 30 seconds before I interrupted him. "There is no problem with the bank," I said calmly. "I stopped sending money." "What? Why did something happen? Are you having financial trouble?" The concern in his voice might have moved me a few weeks earlier. Now it just sounded pathetic. "I know about the investments, Dad. I know about the rental properties. I know about the inheritance. I know that you and Mom have been financially stable for years." There was a long pause. "Celia, I do not know what you think you heard, but I heard everything at Christmas. I heard you call me a low-educated freeloader. I heard Mom say she felt sorry for me. I heard all of you laughing about how I send you money that you do not need while you mock my lack of education and my job." Another pause, longer this time. "Sweetheart, you misunderstood. We were just..." I did not misunderstand anything. For 4 years, I have been sending you $1,200 a month. That is almost $60,000 total. Money that I could have used to further my education, to travel, to invest in my own future. Instead, I sent it to parents who were secretly wealthy and who viewed my sacrifice as entertainment. "Celia, please." "I am done, Dad. Do not call me again. Do not try to contact me. I am not your daughter anymore, and you are not my parents." I hung up and immediately felt lighter than I had in years. Mom called an hour later, crying and apologizing, claiming that they had never meant to hurt me and that I was overreacting. I listened for about 2 minutes before hanging up on her too. Uncle Robert called the next day, trying to play peacemaker and suggesting that families should stick together. I told him that people who mock their family members and take advantage of their generosity are not family. They are just strangers who happen to share DNA. For the first few weeks, I felt sad and hollow. Cutting ties with your parents is not easy, even when they have betrayed you profoundly. I found myself wanting to call them during difficult days, or when something funny happened that I wanted to share. But gradually, something wonderful started happening. With an extra $1,200 in my bank account every month, I could finally breathe financially. I started taking online courses to expand my marketing skills. I joined a gym and started taking care of my health. I bought myself clothes that fit well and made me feel confident. More importantly, I started building real relationships with people who valued and respected me. My coworkers became actual friends when I could afford to join them for happy hour occasionally. I started dating again, something I had not had time or energy for when I was working constantly and sending most of my income to Dallas. 6 months later, I received a promotion at work and a significant salary increase. My boss mentioned that the additional training I had completed and my increased confidence had not gone unnoticed. I realized that investing in myself was producing much better returns than investing in people who did not appreciate it. I also started volunteering at a local literacy center, helping adults earn their GED certificates. Many of the students were people like me who had not followed traditional educational paths, but were working hard to improve their situations. Being around them reminded me that education comes in many forms, and that success is not determined by whether you have a college degree. I never heard from my parents again, which told me everything I needed to know about how much they had actually valued our relationship. If they had truly cared about me as a person, rather than as a source of income, they would have kept trying to rebuild the connection. Their silence confirmed that I had made the right decision. A year after that Christmas Eve, I was able to put a down payment on a small house in Austin. As I signed the paperwork, I thought about how different my life might have been if I had continued sending money to people who saw me as a joke. Instead of building their wealth, I was finally building my own life on my own terms. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who need to earn your love back. And sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the freedom to walk away from those who do not see your worth. Family is not just about blood relations. It is about mutual respect, support, and genuine care. When those elements are missing, it is not family at all. I learned that my value as a person was not determined by my education level, or my income, or my ability to financially support others. It was determined by my character, my work ethic, and my capacity to build meaningful relationships with people who appreciated me for who I was. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to cut ties with family members who were toxic or manipulative? What helped you through that process? Leave a comment below sharing your experience, and do not forget to hit the like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real stories about family relationships and finding your own worth. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve better than people who take advantage of their kindness. Thank you for watching, and remember that your worth is not determined by what you can give others, but by who you are as a person. I wish you all the courage to choose relationships that truly value and respect you.